Hi, I'm Patty Simone, and I teach neuropsychology, psychopharmacology, and psychology of aging classes at Santa Clara University. And this presentation is a tutorial on the organization and function of the nervous system. So the nervous system is divided into two sections, which are separated by both location and function. This is what we're going to focus on in this tutorial. The nervous system is divided into the peripheral nervous system, which is here in yellow on this slide, which is located in the periphery of the body, and then the central nervous system, located centrally, which is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. The example we'll use throughout this tutorial is the reflex that happens when a painful stimulus is received. So here's Dr. Sabatier touching something hot. She pulls her hand away and then recognizes that there's a painful stimulus. So the point today is to understand what's going on. How is that information, that painful stimulus, that information making it into the nervous system and then into both the peripheral and the central nervous system, in order to enable Dr. Sabatier to receive that information, react to it, and then know she's in pain. There are directional terms associated with the nervous system that you should become comfortable with. There's an afferent projection. We'll see that's the sensory information coming from the periphery of the body. That's afferent. And efferent is motor commands coming down to the muscles that allow us to move. There's also lateral, which would be on the side, also known as distal, which is the opposite of medial, which is in the midline, or proximal. And two additional terms are ipsilateral, which means same side, and contralateral, which means opposite. So as information is traveling throughout the body, you might refer to these different terms. You want to know if it's an afferent projection, where it's located, is it proximal stimulus or distal, and is it projected on the same side or opposite side, so ipsilateral or contralateral. Let's start with the peripheral nervous system, and it has two divisions itself, and one of the divisions is the somatic nervous system. Okay, so this is the part of the periphery. These are these are distal nerves that are both our sensory neurons and our motor neurons. So when a painful stimulus is felt in the hand, that information is sensory, and it's picked up in the peripheral nervous system and the somatic nervous system. And when we pull our hand away, that projection is also through the somatic nervous system. Peripheral nervous system, second branch, is the autonomic nervous system. Now this system is more automatic. We're not necessarily consciously aware of what's going on with, if you look at the target organs here, you've got your lungs, your eyes, your digestive tract, liver. So sensory information from the periphery is picked up. That would be afferent information that comes into the central nervous system, sending efferent signals out to the muscles to contract things or dilate things like our pupils, or increase or decrease our heart rate. There are two branches of the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and these typically are acting in balance. There's an equilibrium. But if you're hyper-aroused, so for instance when you burn your hand, your sympathetic nervous system engages and will cause things like increased heart rate, maybe sweating, things like that. One way to think of the sympathetic nervous system function is fight or flight, and parasympathetic is rest and digest. Okay, but typically those two are in balance. Okay, so the peripheral nervous system, again, is somatic and autonomic, and the central nervous system contains interneurons. So these are messages that are coming in from the somatic nervous system or the autonomic nervous system, but then is projecting or living solely in the central nervous system. So if you look at the blow up of that's a slice of the spinal cord there. The neuron in the middle, from the afferent and the efferent neuron, of the somatic nervous system. That neuron in the middle would be considered part of the central nervous system. Now, the central nervous system is comprised of two components again, the spinal cord, which you see here, and also the brain. So information is going to come up through the spinal cord, which is in green on this slide on the right-hand side. So the spinal cord, and it's going to send an afferent projection or a sensory message through the ascending pathway up to the brain itself. And contrary, what also happens is that the brain will send an efferent message or a motor command also from the brain down through the spinal cord and then out to the muscles. That would be an efferent pathway. Interestingly, when information comes in through the somatic nervous system, this is ipsilateral. You see that the hand is burnt, or there's a painful stimulus. The information comes into the spinal cord, stays on the same side of the spinal cord, and then the projection goes out to the muscles on the same hand. So that would be an ipsilateral projection. When the information goes to the brain, it's a contralateral projection, so that if I burn my right hand, that information ultimately will be projected to the left hemisphere of my brain. So to sum up, here we have an example of Dr. Sabatier burning her right hand, experiencing a painful stimulus on her right hand, and we know now that that information is picked up in our somatic nervous system of the peripheral nervous system. It's an afferent projection that goes into the spinal cord, part of the central nervous system, to allow this reflex to happen, which is to immediately send out an efferent projection, a motor projection, to move the hand. But at the same time, more of that afferent projection is going up via the spinal cord to the brain, and it's a contralateral projection at that point, so that the brain also knows that there was a painful stimulus. Okay. In the periphery, it was an ipsilateral connection from the somatic nervous system into the spinal cord back out to the muscles, and in parallel, the autonomic nervous system received this information, which allowed the heart rate to increase and sweating to occur. So here in this module, you've learned about the function and organization of the nervous system. You see the central nervous system is divided into the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is divided into the somatic and autonomic nervous systems. You should have a good understanding now of how those are organized, what they do, how information does move around in the nervous system. You are now ready to take the quiz that's associated with this module, and also you are free to and encouraged to examine some of the additional links that you'll find in this module for more information.